welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a nice long break. So starting this week, we will be taking attendance. If you go to Blackboard, go to Tools, go to our 303 section, obviously, and then go to Tools, and then you're going to see like quickly attendance. When you click on that, it's going to ask you for a 4-digit code. Kyle wrote it up on here, 3711. So let's get a habit of doing this. Every time you come to class, just the first thing you want to do is open a Blackboard and then type in your code, and then you get credit for it, right? So awesome. And the attendance policy, just to review, it's also on the syllabus if you forget. It's you get 3 absence, no questions asked. So if you have an interview one day, you don't need to tell me. You just don't show up, and then you'll see that it's going to get marked as like a free absence. Although I won't be doing it until the end of the semester. At the end of the semester is when I like go through everybody's attendance and give you guys the 3 missed ones. So is that a table next to you, Kyle? Oh wow, there's one way over there. If you can make room for this gentleman. Yeah, this class is full. What was I saying? Oh yeah, attendance. So, you don't have to tell me if you're missing class or anything like that. You get 3 free absences. So, use them however you'd like. I do encourage you to plan ahead of time. If you know you're missing it's sometime in the semester, just keep in mind how many you've missed and so on and so forth. On Blackboard, on the attendance, it actually shows you a record of it tells you immediately like which days you missed and which days you're absent, so you're always aware of like how many you have left and things like that. All right, okay, so we're going to continue down the path of more HTML, more CSS. We're going to be doing this for like a couple more weeks, and then we're going to switch into JavaScript, and then that'll be the end of our front end here. So let's go to ITP 303. There we are. All right, let me go ahead and do present here. Not this one. All right, come on. That one. There we go. All right, so this is the Monday, Wednesday class. All right, I'm the right one. Right, okay. All right, if you see on the class website, you will see that. Oh, hello. Oh, there's one more seat way there. Oh, you could sit there, but you need your laptop. So, okay. As long as
unless you're using this.
No, I'm not. I'm not using it. Yeah, it might be a little awkward for you though. Right? Okay. All right, so this is the class website. So as you can see, we had a holiday, and I can update this here. So these are the lecture links to your lecture notes. So for example, if I click back on the last one, you're going to see that this lecture notes has everything that you need to know. So like all the stuff we did, it has if you like having like a textbook and you like reading things through to help you review the material, I have some links for you. There's a lot of really great articles on the web for you about the things we're learning. So I linked them here. There's slides if you want to download a PDF version. There's slides as well. There's some other useful links. Any completed file I also upload here. It's all the completed lecture code I have here for you. So if you click on the GitHub link, for example, I put it on GitHub because for one, it's easy for me to manage, and 2, it's actually really easy to just kind of click it and you can see the code right away. Right, you don't need to like download it or anything. You can easily. The UI of GitHub is really nice. You can easily look at things, and so you can easily grab whatever you need. If you want to, you can. Some students in the past, if you're familiar with GitHub, you don't have to be for this class. But if you want to, you can also clone the repo as well, or fork the repo, and then you could just do git pull every time the lecture ends, so that you always have the finished code in your on your computer. If you don't know what the heck that means, that's okay. All you have to do is just click on the lecture folder and just click on the HTML that file, and you're going to see all the code here. So as you can see, I give you everything. I give you literally like everything. I give you, slides, my code, my lecture recording. So there's a lot of resources available for you to do any assignment, to do any lab. Of course, there's also office hours if you need some extra help. I haven't posted all the TA office hours just yet, but I will. There are going to be some office hours this week. Definitely there's going to be one on Friday. And then I'm going to have my office hours today, 6 to 7:30. My office hours will be Monday, Wednesday, 6 to 7:30. And this little calendar is always going to show you the latest stuff. If there's any changes, we'll also post on Piazza as well. But check this calendar. This is going to be the latest and greatest office hours. Occasionally, once in a while, I may cancel office hours because I'm traveling, or I have a few travel coming up. But check this calendar here on the class website, and I'll tell you everything. All right, so you have finished your assignment 1, hopefully. And so we have this week. There's no lab because it's a short week, but there is a new assignment. You're going to be doing this assignment number 2 here. And let's take a look at it right now. So in assignment 1, you created a fairly simple page, but it still was kind of structured, and it was in a nice format. It looks like a very structured and clean web page. The second assignment, we're going to make it a little more complicated. We're taking it one small step at a time. You're going to be building something like this, where you're going to pick a TV show, or you can use the same movie that you used for the first one. I don't really care, but we're going to expand upon that one a little bit. As you can see here, we're going to be adding some background images, and then we're going to have a little bit, so the same kind of summary and all that information, footer, same similar stuff. We're going to add the second column right over here on the left, as you can see. So now we have 2 columns. In our first assignment, we only had 1 column, but in the second assignment, you're going to have 2 columns, one on the left, one on the right, or actually the order is not going to matter, whichever order you do, but you're going to have 2 columns now. And this is more representative of a more modern web page, right? You have 2 columns, and on one side you're going to have all these you're going to have a bunch of characters that come out in the movie or the TV show. You're going to have some the character names and some information like that. So that's kind of a goal today. So today, the goal of this class is we're still learning HTML, but we're going to do a little more stuff. We're going to learn how to create columns like this, like 2 columns, or there's 3 columns, right? If you really look at a lot of different websites out there and kind of analyze how the web pages look, luckily a lot of web pages look kind of similar. Let's look at, let's look at Taylor Swift or something, for example. There she is. Instagram, I think, kind of made this kind of layout really popular. 3 columns, right? You have 3 pictures next to each other, 3 column layout. And then this is like a 2 column layout, right? So if you look at a lot of websites, they all end up kind of looking, if you really analyze it, they actually have certain layouts that they follow. So we're gonna kind of talk about this today. So we're gonna how do we create a 2 column layout like this? How can we create a 3 column layout? And we're going to be using CSS to achieve this, as you can imagine, because CSS does this. And hopefully, ultimately, you will be doing assignment 2. Assignment 2 is due the day before we meet again next week, so it'll be due on the 26th for this class, which is Sunday, right? Let's double check here. Sunday at 11:59 p.m. There is if you read the syllabus, there is also an assignment policy, extensions policy. If I totally understand, you have a lot of stuff going on, you have a lot of classes going on, you have a lot of stuff outside of school going on. Totally understandable. That's why in this class, instead of a late policy, I've been enforcing an extension policy. Extensions. What that means is one extension gives you 72 hours extra to do your any assignment or lab. Okay. The only one caveat is you do have to submit this extension. I changed it a little bit within 1 hour after the deadline. So again, the point of this is to help you to plan ahead, to not just do things last minute, because it's actually a really bad habit to form in college, doing things last minute. And fill out a form and say, hey, I'm gonna submit this. I'm gonna request an extension for a specific assignment. And the assignment, and you get 3 extensions total, so you can't combine extensions. One coupon per per offer, or whatever, per product, right? One offer per product or whatever. You can't combine it. You can't, try to make the 3 into 6, anything like that. It's 3 standalone extensions for any assignment or lab. And so you can use it, again, plan ahead. If you have like a huge, like you have 1 week where you have like 5 midterms coming up or something, probably that's a good time to use an extension, right? So again, kind of plan ahead. It's a simple Google form, so you can just fill it out, and then if you fill it out, once you fill it out, that's it. You don't have to, unless we contact you, that's it. That's all you have to do. You just have to choose which one it is. All right, so let's try this out. So what we're going to be making today to help us understand the concept of 2 layouts in general is we are going to build something that looks like, once I get it out, okay, we're going to build our, my image died. No. Oh no, my image is missing. All right, but we're going to build something like this. We're going to build our wannabe Coachella page, totally wannabe Coachella page. I put all these colors for you on purpose, not because I don't think pink, blue, and orange go well together at all, but I'm just showing you these, we're going to put colors in it just to help us see like specific how we do like a left column here, like a right column here. How do we do 3 columns in 1 row? These are artists from last year's Coachella. Actually, I didn't get a chance to update. I think they have a new lineup now, but so we're gonna create something like this just to help us understand like how do we add like 2. This is supposed to be how do we put 2 columns together? How do we put 3 columns together and things like that? Let me go back to see if I have. Because I gotta show you this intro. Wow, seriously? Alright guys, I need to go kind of steal a picture real quick here, because I really need it for our demo. So meanwhile, this image right here is what I wanted to take. I think it's going to be too big. One second. Alright, this is how you steal pictures, you guys. Just kidding, I'm not. Alright, there we go. I need that pine cone image, or the palm tree image, so that we can make this. What do I even call it? Come on. By the way, if your image ever breaks like that, the easiest way to figure out what went wrong is right-click in the open image and tab, and it'll tell you right away. It says, oh, your image has not been found, and then you can actually, this path over here, it tells you exactly what it's looking for. So it's obviously looking for an image called Coachella, but then I don't have it there, so I'm gonna go ahead and fix this real quick. Okay, now it should be there if I refresh. Did I spell it wrong? Oh, the joys of programming, right? Oh, you're right. Nice. Nice. Ah, it's so big. All right, one last thing I'm going to do here is, so what's great about Mac is the preview tool has become really great, actually. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the size right away. It's too big. So you can adjust image sizes using code, right? But you could also, it's sometimes easier to just change the actual image size. I don't remember what I did it as though. All right, 300 is good. All right, so this is what I'm trying to make today. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you the image now that I prepared all this loveliness. All right, Coachella. Okay. There we go. Okay, so if you go to, all right, we're finally ready. So as you can see here, I'm going to have like a green column here, a pink column here, like 2 columns right next to each other. And this one looks a little bit different. I'm going to have 3 columns in one row, and it's surrounded by a blue column. All right, so we're going to talk about how to create these columns, put next to each other. And once you get a hang of how to create 2 column versus 3 column, you could totally build pages like this, no problem. Build pages like Instagram. You could pretty much build most layouts after you really understand how to build a 2 column layout and a 3 column layout. So let's go ahead and try that out. If you go to today's lecture notes, I have for you lecture number 3. I got tested too now. If you click on today's lecture notes, there's like a to-do link right over here. And if there's this Dropbox folder, if you click on that Dropbox folder, it's going to give you this, hopefully it gives you this access to this lovely, let me open it incognito, copy, and I'm going to open it incognito. There you go. You're going to see this one folder with images. To make your life easier, just go ahead and download and do direct download. And let's go ahead and download all these images so we have it here. And then go ahead and download it in your desktop, in your ITP, the 303 folder we've made before, and go ahead and save it in there. And then in there, going back to your desktop, okay, there's your images. There it is. And in here, let's go ahead and create a new folder. Why not? Let's lecture 03 layouts, and then let's put all of our code in there, just so we can keep it organized. So if you recall, last time we met, I created a folder in your desktop here, ITP 303MW, and then we created a folder called lecture 2 and put all our files in here. I'm creating a lecture 3, and I just stored all the images I just downloaded, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images in here, and we're going to work out of this folder here, all right, lecture 03 layouts. So let's go ahead and open up our Sublime text, because that's what we're going to need to write some code here. And let's go ahead and save that as well. And let's go ahead and save this file directly into that HTML, that folder I just downloaded, into layouts. And let's just call this one, like, why not, Coachella.html. And now we have in that 30, so in my desktop, again, I'm kind of there you go. I'm kind of setting up here. So ultimately, what you need to do, what you need to have is a folder called lecture 03 layouts. You need to have an HTML file, and you need to have a bunch of images here. There's like about 5 of them. We're going to be using these images. I'm giving it to you so you don't have to look for them yourself. All right, so there's Coachella.html, and then there is that. And then let's go ahead and do our first, let's go ahead and create our HTML from scratch. So if you recall, for every HTML file ever, you need to have that HTML skeleton, right? HTML, head, body, so on and so forth. So I could type all that, or because you are advanced students now, I'm going to show you a shortcut. Sublime comes with a lot of neat shortcuts. If you type in simply HTML, just HTML straight up, and then click on the tab, voila! Yay! I saved you like 7 seconds of your life, I guess. Right? So one more time, if you totally missed it, again, it's important that it's already saved as an HTML file, though. So you gotta save it as an HTML file. And if I type HTML and then click tab one more time for good measure, it's gonna fill out my HTML skeleton for me. So this is a skeleton. This is required on all pages. So yay, hooray! All right, I'm gonna give my little title here, maybe like lecture 3 or something like that. And let's get started in here. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and open up my open the HTML file in my browser. Currently, it's empty. Okay, as you're getting that set up, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today, and then we'll come back to the code. Okay, so there's a few things you want to, key things to take away today is using something called float to create all these columns that I've been showing you. And then we're also going to be using something called CSS compound selectors, which I'll show you in just a second. Compound selectors. So we've kind of played around with this a little bit, just a little bit on the first week. But as if you recall, when it comes to CSS, we can actually you can actually combine CSS selectors to select something. What I mean by that is this. So let's say you have all this HTML, you have like a header, H1, content, blah blah blah, right? You could actually do something like this: header, comma, and footer. Remember, these are IDs. So this is ID header here, right? ID footer here, right? There you go. This div has ID header. This div has ID footer. So you could actually do something like this, where you do header, comma, footer, and what that does is it selects both of these at both of them. So you could do header, comma, footer, and then if you want both the header and the footer to have, I don't know, let's have a background color pink or something, you simply write background color pink, and then the header and the footer will have background color pink. So everything in between the curly brace will be applied there. Let's say you do, okay, so that's one type of compound selector. Another compound selector you can do, and I showed you this last week, is there's a difference between, that comma makes a difference. If I do comma, it means select both the header and the footer, and then do the HTML stuff to it. But then you can also do something like this, where you do content space P, and like something space P. Something space P is a little bit different. It means it's the child, or we like to say parent-child a lot here. Well, what this would mean is you can select the content. You would select that div with the ID content, and then look for a P, a paragraph tag, within the content. Right, so it'll grab both of these. So again, content is right here, right? Content, div ID content starts here. It ends right over here. Okay, so this is all of content. Okay, so we like to call these like parent. This is the parent, right? And inside div, we have a bunch of children. There's a P tag, there's div tags, image tags, right? There's grandchildren as well. There's a P tag children, and then a grandchild as well, right? P inside of P. So we call these like children and grandchildren. So when you do content space P, it's going to look at content, and it's going to select all the paragraphs within the content. So something like this. Okay, so all of these paragraphs will now be affected by this here. Okay, there's a slightly different one where, let's say so content space P selects like all the children and the grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, great-great-great-great-grandchildren, any P's inside content essentially. However, there are cases where you're like, no, I don't want to select all the paragraphs. I just want to select the first, only like the direct child, not grandchildren, not great-grandchildren, just the direct child, only the direct child. That's when this greater than sign comes into handy. I don't know why they chose a greater than sign, because it doesn't really make sense, but that's what they chose. All right, and then there's also times where you don't care about children, but you're like, I want to select like the sibling. So if I do something like this, P plus div, it's going to grab the div. So their P is right here, right? There's my P is right there. And the immediate next sibling, like so they're on the same, right? Div is a parent, but P and div are siblings, right? We like to give all these kind of interesting names, right? So it's going to select just the div, that div right there. It's not going to select content, header, or anything like that, only that div. And then lastly, there's this like squiggly one, which honestly I don't really use that much, but it is a thing, right? So you could do something like this where you have, if you do PUL, okay, all that means is look for a UL tag and it has like P before it. So like so it's P, and then like after P, if there's a UL exists, then select that one. As long as it exists somewhere after the P. But it has to be a sibling though. So it's a little bit different from the plus sign. The plus sign is specifically saying the div has to come right after the P tag. But the squiggly is kind of saying as long as the UL is somewhere in the same some sibling of P, that's fine. Okay, so there's these out there. There's a lot of these out there. Honestly, I don't use all of them. I only use some of them as needed. So it's totally up to you on when you want to use them. I just want to introduce you that you can select CSS like this. There's also pseudo classes, which I'll show you better. But pseudo classes actually can manipulate a state of an element. So let's talk about that in a second. For example, so this is what you do all the time, right? You hover over things and things change, right? You do that all the time on a website. So you can control that with that :hover. We'll take a further look at it in a second. There's also some other ones that aren't used as much, but they do exist. There's like active, link, visited. You know how a link, like a blue link, when you click on it, it turns purple? It's because visited has a color of purple. So we'll play around with this as well. And you can also select child elements with this thing here. But anyway, we'll play around with it. Lastly, we're going to talk about floats today. Floats are very interesting. So you use floats hopefully for your first assignment where you had to put the picture, right? We use floats to make this effect where you put a float left on this image, then all the text kind of automatically wraps around it. And then for this image, you would do like float right, and then all the text kind of wraps around it, right? I hope you tried that out in assignment 1. So float is really good at doing, that's like its job. Its job is to make things like wrap around, make anything. So what float left actually does is it says, hey, get this image, stick it to the left as much as possible, right? Much as left as possible. By default, everything likes to go top to bottom, but we're saying, hey, this image, stick it to the left as possible. And then anything that comes after my image, make it wrap around that thing. So you could add floats on images. You could actually add floats on anything. You could add float on a paragraph, a div, an H1, an anchor link, anything you want. But what it does is it forces this image to go to the left as possible, and then anything that's after the whatever is floated, make it do the wrap thing. Same thing here. This is float right, so it's saying, hey, this image, I'm going to force you to go to the right as possible, and anything before it is going to wrap around nicely like this image. All right, so that's what floats are meant to do. It allows text. We've done this again. So you have this, and then you have an image, right? If you stick an image normally everything by default, everything goes from top to bottom. That's the natural flow in HTML. Everything goes from top to bottom. But when you make this image float left, right? That image that we just had, if I say float left on it, all the text just naturally wraps around it. Again, we've seen that before. You could do float right. Again, float right will stick it to the right, and everything will go naturally. Sometimes though, there's a point where you're like, oh, I don't want it to do this effect anymore. Maybe at a certain point, you're like, I want to force the float to stop, which is possible. There is something called clear that allows us to do that. So we'll talk more about this in a little bit. But if I manually add like a clear right over here, so this is the image, this is my second paragraph, like ETM right over here. So first paragraph is the lorem ipsum. We have the image and the second paragraph here. If I manually put this div with we haven't talked about class yet, but we'll go in a second, but clear float, it has clear both. What happens is, oh, voila, I kind of stopped the floating from happening. I can force floats to stop happening. So right after the second paragraph, the float stopped. So the paragraph afterwards just continued like top to bottom as normal. It's not doing that wrapping thing anymore. So this clear is actually really useful. We're going to talk more about it in a little bit, but clear is really useful because if you need to control your float, because by default float is just going to float everything, like all the text around it is going to just wrap and all this stuff. But if you want to force it, if you want to stop it at some point, you would use clear float. So we use floats therefore for page layouts. So typically we would have kind of like what you did in assignment 1. Typically by default, like we use divs to create these boxes. Right? And then these divs, these boxes, by default, they go from top to bottom. So we have the box 1, this column, this red one, this gray one, and this yellow one. So we have it from top to bottom, like this, stacking top to bottom. That's the default behavior, and that's what we did in assignment 1. But now we want to make more cool layouts like Coachella. So now if we want to put like 3 boxes next to each other, or let's go back, 2 boxes next to each other, right? We're going to actually use float to accomplish this, which sounds a little bit weird, because, float, you'd think like it's for images or something. But no, we're going to use floats to create columns, essentially. So we're going to do something like this. We're going to say column, All right, yeah, we haven't talked about classes yet, but anyway, class column, it means all these, both of these, are going to have a width 350 pixels, and it's going to float to the left. Oh, interesting. Okay, so now the columns used to be just stacked top to bottom, and then the moment I add a float on both of these columns, we have, boom, they're going to go next to each other. And then a side effect, just like floats, because floats have the side effect, just like before, this footer here, the next div, is going to try to like wrap around it. Does that make sense? Like kind of weird, right? So it's just like how the image was wrapping around, or the text was wrapping around the image. When you put floats on divs, the same kind of behavior happens. So the red column and the gray column are great because they go next to each other. But the yellow column starts trying to like squeeze in here. It's really very odd looking. Probably you don't want this kind of behavior. So if you don't want this kind of behavior, usually because of this, every time we use floats to create columns, eventually we need to tell the float to stop somewhere. So what I'm going to do is after the red, this is the red div right here, this is the gray div right here. After the red and the gray, we're going to use clear float. We're going to add this like kind of fake pseudo div here called clear float. And then, voila, that magically fixes kind of our float problem. All right, so back just to review one more time, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. By default, we use divs to create like boxes, layout stuff, right? So by default, divs like to stack top to bottom. So we have a red div, this is the red div here, the gray div, and then the yellow div. So it stacks top to bottom, which is excellent. We love that. That's great. That's what divs naturally do. However, if I want to now, again, create more interesting layouts, have 2 divs next to each other, 3 divs next to each other, 5 divs next to each other, whatever it is, we have to use float. And so we put float on each of them, the red div and the gray div. We put float to put them next to each other. However, there is one downside to putting floats on stuff. It's that float naturally makes whatever comes afterwards, it makes it like wrap around like this. So to prevent this weird behavior, it feels a little hacky, to be honest, and actually it kind of is. And a lot of people, there's actually newer technology in the works trying to like fix this issue, but unfortunately it's what we have to live with for the last 10 years. So that's still very common. You're going to see floats all the time in any website. So we have to learn it. So that we add this like manual clear float thing. It doesn't have anything to pseudo thing, but then it's going to clear our float. Like that. So we're using, kind of think of your clear floats. A kind of good rule of thumb is clear your float after after you create one row, right? In your first row, you have 2 divs. After you've created one row and you floated those 2 divs, clear right away. So almost like at every row, you're going to clear. So back in my Coachella example, right, I have this div, I don't care because it's one giant box or whatever, we don't care. But here I'm going to have a green div, a pink div, and I'm going to have to clear right after the pink div in the code. The next row, okay, second row here, I have Ariana Grande, Childish Gambino, Blackpink. After these 3, I'm going to clear again right here, right after the last one. So that's kind of flow. Any questions about that? Yeah.
When you have that div, do you have to style it with CSS?
Oh yeah. Just this one here. I should put this clear both. Yeah. Yeah. Good catch. Yeah, I should have put that there. Yeah. Yeah. This doesn't do anything unless we have that. So let's try it out. We'll try this out. I think if you try it out, it'll kind of be a little more clear. But that's the idea behind it. We talked about margin and paddings already, so I won't dwell too much into it. But just to review real quick, margin and padding both create space. Okay, but there's a difference, right? And I hope you've kind of noticed that as you're working on your assignment 1. Margin creates space outside the element. So if you have a div, let's say you have this div with just some text in it. If you do margin 50 pixels, it's going to create the gray space outside. If you do padding 20, it's going to create, the yellow it creates padding creates space inside this div. Inside an element. Inside a div is an element, right? HM element inside an element. So there's a huge difference. And the thing to watch out for is notice how, so my div used to be like this wide. The moment I added padding, the div got wider. All right, so we're gonna have to address that in a bit. And there's a reason why we need to be very specific about how wide a div is. So we'll come back and talk about that. All right, let's try this out. Talk too much now. Let's try all this out. So back in your, you have your, hopefully by now this is all working for you. We just have a blank page for now. Okay, but back here, let's take a look at this. So anytime I'm ready to write some code to create a layout like this, it's a good idea to, before just diving into code, just kind of think back, like, okay, how am I going to create this, right? So like but ultimately I have a bunch of boxes, just like in assignment 1, right? You had a bunch of boxes you have to work with. You have to create a box up here, a box here, box here, box there. For something like this, we're also creating a bunch of boxes, essentially. Or even for assignment 2, essentially you're creating a bunch of boxes, right? So anytime you need to create boxes to create layouts, that's where divs come in very handy. Divs are very good at creating boxes. So this is kind of my idea right now. There's not too much room here, but maybe I could draw it a little bit if there's. A little bit hard to see here, but. Alright, so it's kind of, it's helpful to think in boxes. So we have this giant web page, right? Let's just imagine this is our giant, like, browser. Alright, at the very top, we're going to have, like, this Coachella thing. So we have one big box here. It's going to say, like, Coachella. Alright, so and typically, a lot of websites have something like this. We like to call this, like, the header, for example. Okay, and then the next line, we're going to go row by row. In the next row, it's nice to think of it row by row. In the next row, we have another kind of box, I guess. But this box is divided into 2 boxes, right? One has the picture of the tree, right? And then the other part has some, like, text. Okay, so that's kind of our second box. So we have, like, a, I don't know, like, maybe a right column, and then maybe, like, a left column here. I don't know, something like that. And then the last row, or the second to last row, we have another, it's like another box. But then this is kind of interesting. I have a box, kind of, but then the box is actually like centered here. So maybe it's like, maybe it's more like something like that. Okay, a little bit slightly different. It's centered, but slightly different, but it's still a box nonetheless. We have artist, and then inside that blue box, I have 3 more boxes. Holy cow! Okay, so we have boxes inside boxes. And this is totally valid. You could have boxes inside of boxes inside of boxes. And inside the box, right, there's an image. There's a lot going on. There's an image. Right? There's a lot going on here. There's the, you know, the artist name. Okay. All right. Okay, so we have that. And then finally, it's kind of hard to see, but at the very bottom, I actually did stick in a footer here. I put like a footer. So this is kind of our layout. So whenever I start working on any kind of layout, this is kind of my approach. I kind of try to envision how I'm going to create this. So in the industry, if you're a front-end developer or if you do any kind of front-end development work, typically a designer does the art, the artsy stuff for you, the creative part for you, and they hand you like a design. They hand you like, hey, this is what I want you to create. Or like, okay, maybe not like, it doesn't look anything like this, probably more, maybe a little bit more professional, more clean-cut looking, right? They literally give you a piece of an image or a Photoshop file or something and say, hey, you need to create this. You need to code this up. So when I first get this kind of an image like this, a layout like this, the first thing I do is I don't just go into code right away, although I could. I like to kind of draw it. Okay, how am I gonna put all this together? So this is actually the exact process a lot of front-end developers do. All right, now that I have something like this, and I'll take a picture of it for you. And I'll upload it. Okay. All right. So now that I have something like this, let's put all this together. Okay. The very first thing I'm gonna do, like I mentioned, is so HTML is really good at creating structure, right? So I'm gonna write some structural stuff here. Divs, as I mentioned, are pretty much boxes. So I'm going to create a div at the very top here. And let's start labeling some of these divs. We use IDs to, oh, yes, sorry.
Can I change the color theme of the editor? Like for now, it's kind of
hard. Oh, is it hard to read? Oh, okay. Yeah, let's try that out. Color scheme. Oh, okay. Let me try that one more time. Is that better? Oh yeah, that's so much better. All right, cool. All right, so let's try this out. So I have a div. So anytime I think boxes, I think divs. So at the very top, I'm gonna have this one's gonna be easy. I just have a big div called header for now. Okay, I'll come back. Okay, we're gonna have a big div called header. That's pretty easy. We're gonna leave that alone. All right, and then in my second row, I'm gonna have two divs. What I like to do is, whenever possible, I do like to I'm gonna create a div, call it like about, because it's like the about row. But in this like big div, I like to, whenever possible, especially if I'm breaking things apart, I like to put divs inside of divs. So I'm gonna do something like this: div ID about, and then div ID. Let's just call it column 1, and then div ID equals column 2. Okay, so I have this like div around, and I have put 2 boxes next to each other. I just like doing that just to keep things a little bit more organized here. In my header though, let's go and fill out some text. In my header, for now, I'm just gonna put Coachella for now. All right, there's my second div. About has column 1 here, column 2 here. Let's go ahead and put some in my column 1. Let's go ahead and put in that image that I gave you. It's images called Coachella.png. Okay. In my column 2, I'm gonna have some text. I'll just put P for now, and then just put some text for now. It's great. Okay, for now, let's just keep our text short, just for the sake of time. All right. Does that make sense so far? So we got our header. In our about, we have our column 1, column 2. All right, next one. The next one's more complicated, right? The one with the artists and stuff. The next one is a little more complicated with this one, right? But it's kind of same idea. I'm gonna keep going down the list here. I'm gonna say div ID, maybe artists. Okay, another div. Okay, so I have header. Maybe I could write some people like to write comments like this, so I'll do that for you as well. End header. Oh, end of header. Okay, like this is your end of about. I don't know. Okay, here's my artist. My artist is a little more interesting. My artist is gonna have the blue thing is artist. Maybe here, like this is gonna be artist. Okay, and then in there inside I'm gonna have three. I have 3 more. Yeah, they kind of look identical, but I have 3 more. Let's do div ID. So with IDs, unfortunately, I can't do something like this. I don't know if I showed it. IDs, once it's used once, I can't call another one column 1. The reason for this is because IDs are supposed to be unique. Only one element can have an ID. So I can't reuse IDs twice like this. If I did need to use IDs twice, I would use if I need to use column 1 twice, something I could do is instead use something called class. Okay, what class allows you to do is allows you to use it multiple times. So ID and class are actually they're almost the same thing. It's just that class can be used for multiple elements. So let's say actually I know that these 3 divs, like the yellow ones here, I know that they're all going to look the same. They're all going to have the yellow color, the border, right? They're all going to look the same eventually. So I'm going to just leave that. I'm going to say class column, and I'm going to put like the image in here, right? I think I called it Ariana. Is it JPEG? Ariana.jpg. Okay, maybe like oh, I forgot to put. Oh, okay. One more thing I forgot. In my blue artist, I have like a H2 artist, right? And then because I used H2 there, I'm gonna use H3 here. I'm gonna say like Ariana Grande. Right. I wrote a lot of code without saving it or seeing it. I'm actually a little bit nervous. Maybe I shouldn't have gone so far without doing it. Let's go and right click and open browser real quick, and you're gonna see that it might. Okay, it's okay. Actually, it's not a terrible mess. It's actually coming out pretty well. Okay, so I have my header, my the about stuff. I have my image showing up. I have the text. I have artist, and I have Ariana Grande showing up so far. Okay, so far so good. And as you can see, right now everything's going top to bottom. Even if I know it's kind of smaller screen, but if I go like this, everything is top to bottom. Right, and that's very normal of divs. So let's try this out. So like just to help us kind of visualize this a little bit better, let's add some CSS on top, and we'll continue. We'll like add some colors just to help us like see these things easier. So go ahead and put in your style tag, and let's start with our header, and let's give this header a background color. Okay, header here. Okay, all right, the header, and I'm going to put a background color here. The background color I'm going to use is this weird code here. Go ahead and follow along for now. FDF5C0. Oh no, well, there should be 6 digits. F5DFC0. Okay, and if you're like, what the heck is that? There's my, it's like a little bit brownish. If you're wondering what the heck is that, so another way we could write colors is hex colors. Like there's hex codes. There's these codes that exist for color. If you like to, if you like to use different colors and make your things look better than they are, if you simply Google HTML colors, like there's any website will do. This one looks good. You can actually pick any color you want in here, like right, like let's say you want like a yellow thing, and notice how there's like 6-digit codes. You can grab that there. So that's useful, and that's nice to have when you're yeah, there we go. So background color. Okay, so we have header, so you can kind of see my header here. Notice there's a lot of like weird spaces here. We talked about this before, how header if I do header H1 and do like margin top 0, it's going to get rid of some spacing here, right? And then somebody on Piazza actually asked, like, hey, what about like this, like, what the heck is that? Like, why is there like freaking like white space here? Maybe some of you Googled it, maybe some of you didn't. It's okay. So by default, browsers come with this kind of extra space on the edges, which is kind of gross. So you can, luckily with CSS, you could override anything you want. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and select my HTML tag. My body tag. My body tag represents my browser. And I'm going to do margin, just cancel out all my margins. By the way, so if margin, like if you see just margin, not like margin left or anything like that, it means it's a shorthand for, let me go and write this, shorthand for make all left, right, top, bottom, margin 0. Okay, and then padding 0, same thing, make everything 0. All right, cool. And then we get rid of this like space. For good measure, though, for some browsers, for whatever reason, they add extra spacing to the actual HTML tag, not just the body tag. So sometimes, just for good measure, we like to do HTML, comma, body. I remember we learned the comma earlier. Comma just means for both the HTML tag and the body tag, give margin 0, give padding, and now we have, yay, it's like, hooray, we got rid of some of that spacing issue. Okay, back in header, another thing I haven't showed you quite yet is how about like aligning text? To align text is easy. There's a difference between aligning text versus aligning like a div. There's something called text align where you can do text align center, and then because I have a div called header, right? Because I have the header div, right? These boxes are very useful. I'm saying everything inside my header, all the text inside my header, let's go and write that down. All the text inside the header, text align it to the center. Okay, save, refresh. There we go. There you go. There's my header. Okay, we'll come back to add the background image a little bit later, but I hope so far you're getting the gist. I literally just created a box around header for right now. I removed some spacing, but anyway, ultimately it's the header. And adding some colors in here. I'm adding just to signify, okay, I've created this first box. And what's great about these divs or these boxes is I could have padding on top, I could have padding on the bottom, on the header, right? However I want, and then I can actually create some of the space. Oh, this has a margin bottom, I think. Let's go and get rid of that, right? Like I can control the height. And remember how I said like don't do heights, try not to do heights even here. Like that's really don't use heights. I'm putting this here and I'm saying don't add heights. Okay, in general, there are exceptions, of course, there's always exceptions to rules, but in general, don't add heights, just use padding top and bottom to help you control the top and bottom. All right, so there you go, that's our header. Boom. Okay, so now we've completed our header. Any questions about that, by the way? Okay, so far, so good. Okay, great. All right, our next spot is the about div, right? So let's do about. Right, so in my about is a little more complicated. Let's go ahead and create that. I have ID is about, so I'm going to use pound to grab about. Let's give about a background color, I don't know, like yellow for now, because just why not, all right? There we go. So my about right now is this one big div. It has yellow in the background. It has my picture in column 1. My column 1 has a picture. My column 2 has like that paragraph here. All right, let's get a little more specific. So let's do column 1. I'm going to give my background color light green. Okay, and I'm going to give column 2 background color like, what did I put, like pink or something? Yeah. All right, cool. Okay, so I have column 1 here, column 2 here. Okay. And as you can see, we're stacking things top to bottom. We have a green one, and then we have a pink one. And then what the heck is that yellow thing, right? Okay, so like once in a while, like you're like, what the heck is that? It's probably because something is adding, anytime it's like a space, something is adding margin to it, right? So anytime we see some oddities like this, most likely it's a CSS issue, probably like a default thing. So one thing I want you to get familiar with is debug tools on the browser. So anytime you see some weird visual things like this, like what the freak, why is there a yellow thing there? It should just be green, right? It should just be green and then pink, right? Why is there a yellow thing there? Like there's, I didn't put any, like, there's not, like, it should just be column 1, that's green, and then column 2 is pink, right? There shouldn't be this weird gap here. So sometimes when you see weird gaps, a quick way to like debug to help you out figure out what that is to right click on inspect. Okay, click on inspect, and then like, okay, so that yellow is definitely coming from my about. Okay, and inspect here gives you like a nice tree of all your code, and you could actually like kind of see the things inside it. You can use triangles to see inside it. We have column 1, for example. Okay, and then we have column 2. So it kind of highlights, that's my column 1, that's my column 2. Isn't that interesting? Column 1, and it just skips to column 2. And there's like a weird gap there. Let's continue down sometimes you gotta play detective a little bit to figure out what's going on. Gotta click on the triangle. Gotta click on the paragraph. Oh, what the heck? What does that say? Paragraph, if I hover over the paragraph, you see that orange on top and bottom? So this paragraph is causing some spacing. All right, so paragraph actually by default comes with margin top and margin bottom as well. So again, a lot of times you gotta like just kind of figure out what's causing issues. So that means I gotta fix this here. And what's great about on the bottom here, by the way, you can change your orientation of this. When I click on that P there, and I click on styles down here, I could actually temporarily write some CSS on there just to like test it out. If I go, okay, if I remove margin top, then does that mean it's gonna, if I remove margin top, is that if I put 0? Oh, yes, that fixed my problem. Okay, so I'm using inspect element to kind of like debug what's going on. Yeah.
Is there a way to inspect Safari?
There is. Yeah, it just looks a little bit different. Safari has, I think if you go to, you might have to go to preferences first and then like enable it. Yeah, go to advanced and there's like show develop menu bar on the bottom here. Yeah. And then once you've got that checked, hopefully like you see this develop show up on here somewhere over here. And then they have kind of scrolled down. Where is their or actually you could right click and they should say inspect element now after you do develop. Yeah, you see it? Okay. Experimental features. Wow. Oh, show web inspector. Yep. It looks a little bit different, but essentially it does the same thing. Alright, so play around with it, get familiar with it. The first few times when you use it, it might be a little bit weird to use, but after you try a few times, it's great. And as you probably know because you've been programming already, programming is like 80% debugging and 20% actually coding. So you gotta get good at, you're gonna naturally have to get used to using debugging tools like this to figure out what's going on with your code. So HTML, even in HTML, CSS, you gotta debug stuff. All right, so if I close this and I refresh this right now, it's just a temporary thing to help me like figure out the issues. So I gotta actually write it in. So let's go back to my code. Where is it? Let's do about. I guess I could do like column 2 P and then like margin top 0, something like that. Save. There you go. I could have just done P as well, right? Like this would have worked as well. But if I did that, that means if I had a lot of different paragraphs, they would all get affected. So to be extra safe, like I just wanted to be more specific here. Like I'm saying specifically the paragraph in column 2, specifically that one, just that one and only that one. Change my margin top. There we go. Yeah.
If there were multiple paragraphs in column 2, it would change
all of them. It'll change all of them. Yeah. So you gotta be careful there too. Yeah. So yeah, why don't we try that? So if I had like 3 paragraphs. So margin top. Oh, column T, the P also has margin bottom. If I did that, there you go. All of them now don't have. Sure, let's leave it like that. Just to give you an idea of what that's like. So yeah, paragraphs come with margin top and bottom. Heading 1, 2, 3, all the headings come with margin top and bottom. So you just gotta watch out for like there's some tags come with stuff and you gotta override it, which you're gonna have to do. CSS is good at overriding things. So there you go. All right, cool. So now we have a green column, a pink column, column 1, column 2. Awesome. Column 1 is green, column 2 is pink. Awesome. And again, notice how the divs by default they stack top to bottom. Another thing divs do is take a look at the width. The width just stretches as wide as it can. So no matter what my browser size is, the green, notice the green and the pink, it just stretches all the way to the end. When it comes to height, notice how the height of the green div is different from the pink div. Okay, so there's no like fixed height on any of these things. Divs are kind of smart. They naturally, the height just naturally grows depending on the content inside it. So that's a default behavior of divs. Of course, we can override their default behavior, but it's always it's always good to know the default behavior so that you know why it's doing certain things. So this is the default behavior. The width stretches across as much as possible. The height is only as tall as its contents. Any questions about that so far? Okay. Alrighty, let's continue. So, alright, so now that we got that, finally, let's do the thing we really want to do today, is I want to make the green div and the pink div go next to each other. I want to do the left-right thingy here. Okay, I want to make a 2-column layout here. All right, so yeah, let's go into that. First things first, right now the width is a problem. The green takes up the whole browser. The pink takes up the whole browser, right? So the width is a problem. So let's first take care of the width problem. All right, column, I already forgot. Okay, column 1, the background color. Let's fix the width on this one. So I'm gonna kind of pick a random width right now. I don't really have a specific width in mind. It's not important as of right now. So I'm just gonna pick one. There are times to watch out though that like for whatever reason the designer is like, no, the div has to be, or this box has to be exactly 200 pixels or something. But for now, I'm gonna kind of eyeball it. I'm just gonna call it 600. Yeah. Yeah, if you do 600, nothing will work. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta be specific with the units. Yeah, PX. There's actually other units out there. There's like, you could actually do like EM, like PT, like points even. But the standard one you use is PX. So we're going to do pixels, 600 pixels. Yeah, I'm just picking one. If I go back to my green here, if I refresh, ooh, yay, pink. Green. Ooh, yellow. And you want to have an idea where that yellow is coming from? The about. Yep. So about is actually doing its job. It's still containing everything together. So it's not a problem right now. Okay, so about is our big parent one. In the about, we have column 1 and column 2. Because it can be kind of confusing to look at it that way, a lot of people like to write code like this. Okay, it doesn't. If I save this, nothing changes. But this makes it a little bit clearer. Like, so remember, if there's a space, there's a difference between a space versus there's comma, right? If I put a space, all it's saying is, okay, the column 1 inside about. So this makes it just easier for you to read. Like, oh, okay, so about is like my parent. So it's okay that I see this word yellow. There's about column 1. And of course, another advantage to this is that you're just being very specific. You're saying the column 1 inside about. Right. Compound selector. All right, so we have that. Great. Okay, we have light green. All right, that's good. Let's prepare my column 2, the pink one as well. The pink one, I'm gonna again pick just random ones for now. I'm just gonna put 400 pixels for now. I don't know. I'm just kind of picking stuff, and let's go ahead and refresh. Ooh, okay, so we got we have a green div, we have a pink div, right? Green div and pink div. Okay, awesome. We've got these widths fixed. Okay, and then the moment you specify a width like this, no matter what browser size you go, it's going to remain that way. Just FYI. All right. We'll talk more about so at this point, even for assignment 2, I don't care about what it looks like on different screen sizes. That's going to be our next lecture. For assignment 2, as long as it looks good on your desktop, that's all I care about. On your laptop, like a typical 13-inch or 15-inch laptop, that's fine. Okay. Anyway, we have fixed widths now. Great, but so the width change, that's awesome. We see a lot of yellow, that's awesome. But they're still not next to each other, right? Green and pink are still not next to each other. So this is where that float comes in, where it's going to float this over. I'm going to do, actually, before I do that, let me, just so we can see this, my artist is coming up next. Okay, artist is coming up next. So let's go ahead and give a background color sky blue for now. Okay, artist is coming up next. We're going to work on artist in a bit. But we have, right now we have this one right over here. All right, column 1, column 2. All right, let's go ahead and float this thing here. I'm going to do float here, float left. Okay, so because I want my column 1, I want to stick it to the left as possible. And hopefully my pink one will follow suit. Let's do that. All right, okay, nothing happened. Okay, cool. The reason nothing happened is because, so far my green column is actually floating to the left. Okay, we just kind of can't tell, but it is. But then but my green div is already on the left, so maybe so whatever. But the next thing I gotta do is my pink here. I also need to float this one to the left too, because what I want to say is, hey, my pink div, go to the left as possible in the same row as the one before it. So if I save this, refresh, magic, and kind of weird stuff and magic at the same time, right? So I floated both column 1 and column 2. They are next to each other. What's happening is both of them are going to the left as possible, as much as possible. So they've created this thing, but then there's let's write some notes in here. There is an unfortunate side effect to float. it will cause whatever comes after the float to try to wrap around this one, or the floated element. Okay, so that's why you see my artist is trying to like fit in next to the pink. It's kind of a weird phenomenon here. Like this is a totally like, I've seen this happen to so many students. They're like, what the heck? Like, right? They're like, what just happened? They don't know it's a very common error, and it looks disastrous, right? Because you're like, what is this, right? So this is, anytime you see something weird like this happen, you know right away, I'm telling you right now, it's because you floated something and then you didn't complete your floating. So to finish this off, because I don't want this weird effect to happen, a good rule of thumb, like I mentioned before, is to use clear whenever possible. Okay, so or whenever you're done with floats. So in my design here, I just want the tree and the text to be one row, and that's it. So I'm gonna float this, stop it here, so the artist is gonna naturally go down to the next row. So this is where I'm gonna do that clear thingy. I'm gonna go ahead and create, new thing. I'm going to create a class. Instead of using IDs, because I'm going to be clearing multiple times, another thing that's good to use is something called clear float right here with a period. Notice this period here. I'll come back to this in a second. Actually, I'm going to clear both. Right, before I jump into that though, let's quickly take back, like what the freak is this? This is a little bit different from ID. Okay, this is how we denote classes. So if I have something like this, like it means something like this. Like let's say I have clear text. Let's say I want to, for whatever reason, I want to make some text blue. All right, I could have a class called blue text like this, and I could add it to any element. I could say, hey H1, you're gonna have a class called blue text. All right, there you go, class. So if I do class like that, it selects that one. The great thing about class is I could do it anywhere I want. I could do like, hey, maybe this paragraph is gonna be blue text, right? Just the second paragraph, right? Not the first and third one, right? And I could add this class wherever I want. Class, blue text, and it's not restricted like ID. Like I mentioned, ID can be only used once, but class you can use multiple times, like this. So now any HTML element with a class. Blue text, there you go, it's all blue text now. Does that make sense? So classes are used for multiple things, whereas IDs can only use once. Yeah.
When you floated the original palm tree one, how come everything after that didn't also get floated?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was kind of wondering about this. I thought it should have also forced it too. I think it's because my theory, let me just try it real quick, because this is a very good question. Yeah, there you go. Oh, my theory, okay. Good question, yeah. So it's because when I have 500, the pink is too big to fit next to this thing. So it's smartly being there. But if this was anything smaller, like 100 or something, yeah, oh my gosh, just disaster. Very good question. I was wondering the same thing, I just didn't know how to address it. But yeah. I was at 400, right? Okay. So be careful when you do floats. It causes things to break. So we got a clear float. Let's go back to the clear float here. I create a new class called clear float. Okay, I'm gonna go back to, so after my column 1 has stuff, my column 2 has stuff. And then after column 2, I'm going to create a new div with a class. I'll call it clear float. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close that div. So column 1, column 2, and then I'm going to do clear float like that. Okay, so it has to come exactly right after my column 2, right away. If I refresh now, oh wait, sorry, let me just, oh yeah, oops, there you go. All right, back to, so column 1 has a float, column 1 has a float, column 2 has a float left. Okay, and then right after, so in my HTML, going back to my HTML, column 1 has float, column 2 has float, and right after column 2, line 68, I have this class equals clear float. that class equals clear float is this right here. Clear float, clear both. Okay. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to refresh. Yay! So now what happened is my green is floating, my pink is floating, the float stopped, and yay, now we're going to, the artist is in its rightful place in the next row. Okay, so good rule of thumb is, again, every time you create a new row, when you're done with that one row, just clear it. Like, clear whenever possible. This is one thing that a lot of students just forget to do. They forget to clear stuff, and that's why things break. So all the time, whenever you're floating things, float, don't forget to clear somewhere. You gotta clear somewhere. Okay, so let me write some notes here as well. Good rule of thumb is to clear float at the end of one row. And it's important that you clear it, like, legit, like, right after whatever the last one is. So column 2, and then just right away. Just get it done fast as soon as possible. So that it doesn't affect any, I don't know, any other random things that might be around. Maybe I'll write that as well. Clear it right after the last div. Yeah. Sure. It's clear both. And the reason why it's both is because you could actually specify like only clear the left float or the right float or something. But I just, make my life easier to do clear both. Okay. Cool. Now we got like left, right, and all that stuff. Awesome. Now, if I want this to like take up the whole page, kind of like this one, right? I could do I have a lot of freedom to do stuff. I could do like column 1. If I wanted to, I could make the width even bigger, right? To make fill more space. I could even do like text align right. Okay, what text align right does is all the text inside my column 1, like move it to the right. So it also applies to images, actually. Not all images, but images. So my image, if I did text align right, my image inside the column is going to go to the left. I could, if I wanted, I could put like padding top to like kind of make some room up there above the palm tree, like put some room up there if I wanted. Right, I could do a lot of nifty stuff here. Okay, but here's a slight problem with my column here. My pink one is so short, right? Like, look at compared to this one versus this one. Like, my pink is extremely short, and it's kind of annoying, right? So the automatic reaction that most students do is, oh, I'm just gonna put a height and then do like 800 pixels or something, right? Oh shoot, I'm wrong now. I gotta change that to 400 pixels. Oh wow, I actually got it right. Like enough, right? It's like maybe it's more like 398. Okay, more like 399. Wow, I was really close. Okay, so that's the natural reaction. Unfortunately, as you can just see, what happened is it's a lot of guesswork, and it's not good because, like, what if like later down the line they're like, hey, we're gonna change the text, we want to add more paragraphs or something. Oh, that didn't break anything. Okay. Oh, because it's. Oh shoot! Right. So then now we gotta make the pink taller again. Like, right? It just creates a lot of problems. And as much as possible, if I'm programming, I want to make something like once and then never have to touch it again. Almost like I want it to run maintain itself. Right. That's the whole reason one of the reasons of programming, so that I do less manual work. That's why we program things, because we do less, or code things so we do less manual work. So instead of so this is one you can fix heights. Like, it is. A lot of people, even in the real life, like, they do set, people do set heights. I see it all the time, but it's really not good practice because it really ends up making you do more work later. And it's just not, it's not good practice. So instead of putting heights like this, here's a kind of a trick that we use. And when it comes to front-end development, we like to use a lot of visual kind of tricks. So instead of adding a height like this, I'm going to write some comments here because I want to be specific here. Don't add a fixed height. Okay, because content can change. Okay, right, kind of a visual trick here. is, you see that yellow? Okay, yellow is my about page right now. You see that yellow? And I'm very fortunate because about is my parent of green and pink. So no matter if the green's taller or the pink height changes, whatever, the about, let's write this down here. About's height is going to change depending on the content inside it naturally. Because that's the default behavior of divs. The divs are just going to grow as tall as its content. So about right now has column 1 and column 2 in mind, and about is going to be as tall as column 1 and column 2. So for about 1, if I change this background color, not yellow, but pink, let's say, I'm just going to pick pink. Magic! It looks like a trick. Again, not perfect, but it works for most cases. Amazing! It looks like it's part of. Yeah. Again, not perfect, kind of weird, but it is common thing that people do. Some people, eventually over the years, people are like, this is really hacky, like, I hate CSS, right, as so on and so forth. So actually I will tell you right now, in 2020, we're fortunate that there are more or less hacky ways to do things like this, to create columns and rows. We'll talk about that in a future lecture, some of the recent developments of CSS. But unfortunately, this is what we've been stuck with in web dev for so long, that a lot of websites still use this. There's still a lot of developers that don't know the new technologies, and they're like really like very up in their careers and stuff like that. They still use floats, so we have to still know what they are. Hopefully, maybe in the next 5-6 years or so, we're going to stop using floats altogether. But it takes time for old stuff to kind of die out. So we got to learn this for now. Okay. So, all right, that's one kind of hacky way to do it. Now we have kind of like thing, of course. And notice how right, that width actually matters if we have like, what is this, like 600 pixel, we have this 600 pixel. If the screen is too small, it's gonna start like trying to go to the next line and things like that. This is normal, and it's okay for now. Like I said in this class, for the second assignment, it's okay if, like, for browsers, different size, for it looks different, as long as it looks good on your desktop, like your 13-inch, 15-inch laptop, like it's about like 1440 pixels wide. It's fine. All right, any questions about 2 column like that? Yes.
I just wonder, like, so
yeah.
the div, like, for the about, like,
yeah.
is initialized to the size of the picture. Like, the count, like, which ever is the bigger.
Sorry, one more time?
Like,
the picture? Picture?
The about div?
Yeah.
Like, where did you, like, initialize the size of?
Oh, I didn't give any size. That's.
If, like, the picture just perfectly fits the size.
Oh, the tree?
Yeah. I just wonder, like, how did the size of the...
Oh, I manipulated it. The picture size, I purposely made it smaller. Yeah. I could have, I could change it as well if I wanted to. Like, I could have done, like, maybe, like... Yeah, I actually resized my picture so that's smaller. But if this was really big, like IMG, like, right now, and if it's too big, it's gonna create problems, right? Okay, if it was really big, yeah, it definitely creates problems. So I would have had to resize it eventually. Yeah. But I'm just fortunate that the image just had a nice size.
So it just depends on the...
Yeah, the div, exactly. Yeah.
For the columns, is there a way to, like, make it so it's always, like, consistently centered, I guess, without setting, like, a width? Is there, like, I don't know how to explain it.
Kind of, you mean like maybe like this, how the blue one is centered, or the yellows are centered?
There's, like, 2 columns, like the green and the pink.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to, even if you stretch it, the window screen, the columns will still be, like, centered?
You mean like even though like like just have the it's centered. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, so one way you can do is using this width. I know for a fact that my browsers, I think, how big is my browser? You can actually tell how your browser is doing inspect. One thing I could do is manually kind of like say, okay, this is 1275, This whole thing is 1275. So what's 1275 divided by 2? 637.5. I could do like 637.5. And then it's kind of centered. Is that, for example, right? But then of course, if I resize it, it's gonna die, right? So we're gonna talk more about that resizing and stuff later. But for now, if you want to like absolutely center, you would have to do something like that. Eventually, we're gonna use percentages. 50% here, 50% here. Eventually, don't worry about it right now. And then no matter what, is this what you mean by center? And then no matter what size I am, it'll be centered. Yeah. So for that, it's coming. Don't worry about this too much yet. It's coming. We're gonna do a whole thing on it because percentages gets really wacky. Because when you start doing with percentages, you got to think about padding and margin percentages too, right? Oh my gosh, so you got to do everything percentages, right? So we're gonna talk about percentages later. But if you're curious, you could take a look into it. But yeah, you can do percentages to make it fit the screen. Yeah. Great. Any other questions? Yeah.
For the column 2 content.
Yeah.
If it grows, wouldn't the green side get shorter?
Yep. Yep. Good observation. Yep. So a downside to this, if I did this again, and then oh shoot, what happens now? Yeah. So this is also, yep, this is a problem as well. I would then go backwards, make the pink one just pink, and then my about page, I would change my about to light green. Oh, and then we're gonna have some problems too, though. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I would have to do a little bit of that. Yeah, so it's yeah, a good observation. Not perfect. Pick your poison, I guess. Yeah. There's issues. For sure there's issues. There's some manual changes you gotta do. That's why floats, again, people hate them. People hate CSS. But it's changing though. So, yeah. Great observation. Okay, let's move on to the last one. We have a little more time. And that'll be the end. 2 columns. Great. Well, what about artists? 3 columns. Stuff like this. And then how do I put center stuff, right? Things like that. Fun stuff. All right, so I have on the bottom I have my artist div here, and then let's copy this here. Yeah, artist here. All right, so I have a div with we're going back to column real quick, class real quick. So all these 3 are going to be the same. So I'm just going to copy this over line 80 to 83, like column here. I'm going to copy that, paste that. I have 3. So I have Ariane, and then who else do I have? I have like Childish Gambino. Let's quickly change that. I think it's like Gambino. Where is this? This one is I totally misspelled name. This one is Blackpink. Okay, and then we have cool. Okay. And then I'm giving these classes because all 3 of them, because this makes it easy for me to simply say, hey, all 3 columns are gonna use this column here. Okay, so we have 3 divs, column. So I have the artist div, right? I have this artist div. Inside my artist div, I have 3 smaller ones. The smaller ones are called column. Okay, I'm gonna scroll all the way up. And this is my artists, right? All right, so let's continue our being specific here. I can do column like this, artist column, just to specify my column is inside my artist, right? Column is my inside artist. Okay, and then what's great about this, if I do background color, ooh, I picked like a nice background color here. FEF 587. FEF, not 687, 587. Okay, it's gonna be like a yellow color, just a nicer yellow color. There it is, nice pastel yellow color. Oh, look, okay, this projector has really bad colors, but on my screen it looks pretty. All right, so I have background color FE587, and because all three of the boxes that contain my image and my text, because they have this class called column, right? Column. All three of them just get the background color yellow, and that's really nice, right? Because now I don't have to write my CSS over and over again. I just write it once, and then whew, sweet. Alrighty, let's get to work here. So, what's next? Okay, let's go ahead and set some widths. So I want it to look like this, right? So I need to set some widths. So, but same thing. So these divs with the class column, by default the width is this wide. That's the default behavior, right? So we gotta change some width here. So let's continue down the path here. I'm gonna just pick a random number, 300 pixels for now. There we go. Now we have 300. Oh my gosh, there's a problem here. Maybe this is a kind of problem you're wondering about. What the heck? My picture is big. It's not fitting in my div. So my pictures, by default, don't care about, they do not care about your divs. That's just the way it is. So we gotta fix them. All right, let's go and fix them real quick. IMG, for example, and let's give them a width of 300 pixels. There we go. Now they've conformed into my little div here. But this 300, it gets kind of annoying because later, let's say you do say, hey, I want to make my width 400, right? And I got to change this 400, right? It gets kind of annoying to have to change this all the time. So one, kind of nice trick is to, instead of setting a fixed width, is if you know that the image inside your div is going to have to be, the same size as the div, if you do width 100%, no matter what I change my width to, whether it's 400, whether it's 100, right? Whether it's 800, right? Whatever it is, the image is going to automatically conform to my artist div. So let's go change that back to 300. There we go. Make sense? So percentages are useful also in this kind of situation. Cool, let's float them. So now that everything is top to bottom, the width has changed. All right, finally, we can put all this in one row. So kind of the same idea. So each single yellow one is going to be in one row, right? So I can simply say float left. So all three of my artists are going to have a float left now, and they're all going to try to squeeze to the left as much as possible. Let's go ahead and save this. Yay! Voila, magic. Now everything is in one row. Right, float left. Oh, I forgot my little footer here. Forgot my footer there. But anyway. Okay. Okay, but I know we don't see any issue here right now, but this is actually, there's an issue with this because I floated. Notice how the blue just kind of stopped there, right? So anytime I float, what did I have to do? I have to clear, right? So okay, my artist column has my background color, has my width, it has my float left. I'm going to scroll back down here, and I'm going to do that same thing where Ariana Grande, Childish Gambino, Blackpink, and right over here, I got to, don't forget to clear the float. The row ends of artist ends here. Div class clear, float, and then just empty div. It's empty div, doesn't really do anything. It's kind of a manual thing right over here. Right after Blackpink, I am clearing my float, and then there we go. We should, there you go. Let's fix there. Cool. So now we have one Nice. Row. Okay. So far, each of these boxes are 300 pixels. They all have float on them, so they are floated to the left as possible, making them align in one nice row. They're all horizontally next to each other. No more vertical top to bottom. It's left to right now. And everything is in one row thanks to float. Any questions about that? So same idea, right? We did the same thing, like for 2 column, whether it's 2 column or 3 column, same idea. We're just floating and clearing at the right time. Yeah.
So the artist div is like
Yeah.
the parent of the things that we floated. So why was that causing things to get messed up? Because like I thought float would mess things up after the thing that you floated.
Yeah. So when you start floating things, also what happens is, like the parent doesn't know the height of the children divs anymore. Yeah, so it became, that's why it became so short right there. Like it says, hey, all the children items, they're floating. I don't know how tall they are anymore because they're floating. Like they're literally floating. Like, so that's why it stopped there. Yeah, good question. Very good observation. Yeah. Okay, sweet. Let's center this, right? Okay, so now just like this, we have some more work to do, but like first things first, I want to like this. You see how this whole blue div is centered? Like right now, the blue div, the whole thing is just here. I want to center this horizontally, the whole div. So to center just like some text line is fine, or image or something like that. But if I want to center a whole div, I gotta do something a little bit different here. Let's look at let's go back to my artist. So if I want to center all this along with the blue div, right? So my blue div, everything's gonna get centered. I need to change the width a little bit of my blue div as well. Like I needed to match, like basically match the exact thing here. So let's change that up. My artist, so we gotta calculate a width here. It could be maybe like I don't know, I'm just gonna pick a number right now. Let's see what happens. Oh shoot. Uh-oh, that's not good. Uh-oh. Okay. So because my parent is a parent, because if the parent has a width 400, all my children are gonna, like, they can't fit in 400 anymore, right? Because each of my columns are 300. So divs are gonna be very obedient to their parents and follow suit to the width. So watch out for that. Unlike images don't care how wide their parents are. They're rebellious. They're gonna go outside their parents or their divs. But divs are very obedient. Divs are gonna naturally try to fit in their parent as much as possible. So artist is the parent. So if I set a width 400, it's gonna freak out. Even 600 is too little, right? It fit 2 of them, but not 3 of them, right? So the width of this parent matters because it's children column divs will follow suit. Will try to fit within this. Okay. So what does that mean? We gotta do some math here, right, to get an exact number. I mean, I could try to like guesstimate. I could think, oh, maybe it's like about 1,000. Oh, that's wrong, right? I could try to guess, or I could try to use math to help me out here. So right now, I know that each column is 300 pixels. So that's pretty easy, right? I have 3 of them. 300 times 3 is awesome. Thank you. Great, you're in college. All right. So width is 300 times 3. There we go. Oh, sweet. Blue is perfectly in match with my children. Now the magical thing, and you guys done this before, right? Margin left auto. Okay, margin right auto. Okay, because I'm lazy, I'm going to show you another trick. Shorthand, we love to use shorthand. All right, if you see anything like this before, okay, what that means is margin, shorthand for margin top and bottom is 0. Left and right are auto. Okay, so that's like a lot of times people do this. I mean, I guess you could just do margin auto too, but this is like more common. Anyway, so this is a shorthand for whatever we just did above. And then boom. Yeah. It's centered. But be careful, right? Obviously, like, it's not perfect. It's not resizing correctly. But at least for the laptop sizes, it is. There's a little gap there. Anyone want to guess why we have a gap there? Default behavior of? Yes, artist. Good. Yep, awesome. So artist, H2. These stupid headings, right? These headings add spacing on margin top, margin bottom. So if you want to get rid of it, you got to override it. So just watch out for that. Anyway, let's go back to this. All right, cool, awesome. Yay, we have our like wannabe Coachella page. Awesome. We have some more artists, pretend artists coming to my event, so on and so forth. Awesome. Okay, I was like, are you telling me to stop my lecture? All right. Okay, last thing I'm gonna do. We gotta do last thing. I promise. Last thing. Okay. Last thing. Last thing we're gonna do here. But what if I want spacing? What if I want like margin like left? Like I want spacing in between each picture, right? Margin left, margin right. Oh, I got spacing. But uh-oh. Alright, so math is important here. Because I increased the spacing on left and right, artists became bigger. Alright? Shoot. So now it's no longer just 900 anymore. We're going to, it's going to become spacing matters as to width of this parent artist div. Right? So now this width is no longer 900. It's like 9, 10, 20, 40, 60, 960. Okay, yay! Okay, so 10 pixels on the left, on the right, so each of them have, so like it's, each of them have 10 pixels on the left and the right, so each width became 320 each. Okay, but I want to do more stuff. I want to make it look cool. I want to add like some like kind of like almost like a border. I want to add some like spacing in between as well. That can be done with padding. Let's say I want to do padding, like padding left 10 pixel and padding right 10 pixel as well. Oh shoot, right? Oh, padding. Maybe let's just do padding everything. Padding 10 pixel. Padding everything. Oh, okay, cool. I get like a nice effect. But uh-oh, my third black pink just went to the next row. Uh-oh, right? Oh, God, right? So, like, now I'm going to go to artist, and then, okay, so now it's not 960 anymore. It's going to be, so this is how it is. So by default, each of them have 300 as their, here, maybe I'll make this slightly different to make it obvious here. Yeah. All right, so what's happened is, so by default, each of them are 300, right? But then we have 10 pixels of margin on the right, 10 pixels on the right, left, 15 pixels on the left, 300 pixels. We got 15 pixels on the left, on the other side, on the right, and then another margin here. Okay, and then so times 3, all of that times 3. Wow, this kind of so I'm teaching Python this semester to completely new intro people. We just did arithmetic like this the other day. But Python calculated it for me. I'm gonna run Python to calculate it for me. Just kidding. So anyway, so then as a result, I'll do the math for you. I'll be your Python. It's gonna be 1020 pixels. Nope, it's not. Oh, because I added okay. So it's gonna be 350 times 3. 1050. Oh, that's not too bad. There you go. Woo! Math. Holy cow. I'm going to do one last annoying thing. I want a border. Right, I want a border around them. And as you can imagine, border also adds to width. So back to my artist column. I add a border. And we did like border style and all that. I'll show you shorthand. This is a shorthand for border. Okay, border, 1 pixel, solid black. That's the shorthand for border. Yay, we added border. Oh my gosh, it broke again. Okay, so border, that's just to let you know. Border all spoiled. So border adds to width, padding adds to width. Margin, you gotta watch out for margins though. So notice how the padding and the border added width to my artist, to the column. Okay. It didn't add, margin is still outside outside the specific artist. But it did add space to my parent, the blue box, the artist box here. So watch out for that, alright? So let's go back here. Where is it? So now we have even more stuff here. I got 1 pixel, my border here. Actually, to be specific, it's like this: 10 pixels, margin outside, border on the border, 15 pixel, 1 pixel, 10 pixel. So this becomes 1056. Yay! All right, we did a lot today, and we did a lot, especially because we did a lot today, especially because we have that Monday off. So I kind of crammed a lot of stuff in. But I hope it's straightforward. I hope I'm walking through this with you intentionally because and detail by detail, because layouts is so important. A lot of people misunderstand how layouts work, and that's why people hate CSS, like I told you. So I just wanted to kind of walk this down, like how this kind of works. But so now that you have this down, my hope is that you can take a look at this, and then kind of think about, okay, how am I going to break this into boxes? Oh, I realized I didn't talk about background image yet. Background image is easy. I actually put a link in the requirements, but background image, you just do background image. Oh, background, not origin. Background image. It looks a little bit different. You're going to put the URL in here. The path of a background image right there. Okay, add image. Okay. Anyway, so my hope is that, again, like now that you kind of understood the basics of layout, you can see any layouts like this and then be able to kind of build it out yourself. So if you can imagine, right, you have a header, you're going to have like stuff. So figure out, kind of play around. Maybe you have there's actually a number of different ways you can go about this. There's no like one straight answer. So like you could have like a header probably. You probably have like, I don't know, you could either do like a big div and another div inside and then 2 more divs inside. There's a footer, right? So play around with it. Play around with floats. It's due on Sunday. I have office hours today if you want to get started early, or if you have any questions about all the stuff that we just went over. Again, I'll upload all the code. You can always review the lecture. And then on Friday, for sure, there's going to be office hours. I'm trying to see if we can get any other office hours in between Wednesday and before the weekend. All right. Okay, then that's kind of it for today. Have a great rest of your week. I'll see you next week.